Hey guys, happy Friday. Welcome to our Friday market recap. We have Richard Allen and myself will be discussing some of the hot topics from this week, what's going on, and just our opinions on them basically. So if you enjoy this, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, leave your thoughts down below. Richard, how you doing today?
Doing well. How are you, Julie?
Good. TGI Friday. Excited for the weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, hopefully. So, how about this week? Hey, a little bit quieter, not some of the big explosive things that we had the other week, but still some interesting topics today.
It was a little bit quieter. We're, of course, going to talk about cryptocurrency because
Yeah.
Bitcoin fell quite a bit. They were actually at one point negative on the year. So we're going to talk about that. So we have a lot of stuff to cover, but it was definitely a lighter week, which was, I think a lot of people were happy about, honestly,
Yeah.
to have a little more laid back of a week.
Yeah. It's never a bad thing to have like less dramatic news, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
like you mentioned, we had Bitcoin. So I'll bring up their chart here. There we go. So we've recovered a bit today, but Tuesday we sank down to the $29,000 levels. So this is
Yeah.
pretty low considering where we've been at, especially since the beginning of the year. Hey?
Yeah. Yeah. And you saw that it was such a drastic upswing from that low. So
Mm,
I think people were excited to buy the dip here. And if you look at a couple different exchanges, there were a couple that showed it actually dip below 29,000.
really?
And Bitcoin's like that. They're it's a different price on pretty much anywhere you look.
Sure.
But yeah, I think people were excited to buy the dip. I personally made a video about Bitcoin, and I was thinking if it hit that below that psychological level of 30,000 that it was going to fall further. And
Hmm.
it did, but just a little, which I think was good for anybody that's holding crypto. They were excited to see it bounce back. So,
Yeah. And I made a video earlier this week more on crypto related stocks, but kind of same thing. Like we're seeing these lows. Is it time to buy the dip? And we had a couple different things weighing on the price. I think this week the big headline is the Chinese crackdown on crypto. So they're
yeah.
making it a little harder over there. What are your thoughts on that?
They kind of jumped on the bandwagon of it, of crypto and Bitcoin mining specifically using too much energy. And
Mhm.
I've heard reports of them closing as high as 90% of Bitcoin miners,
Yeah.
which is absolutely crazy because I think last I heard 30% or so of the Bitcoin mining takes place in China.
I'd actually
Um,
heard as high as 65 or 75%
really?
being in
Oh my
China.
goodness.
Yeah. So a
Yeah.
huge chunk with
Yeah.
either number, right? But
Right.
yeah, big impact.
Yeah, and I think yeah, that's a lot. And I've seen articles, getting really bearish on that sentiment, but I've seen other articles being really excited for some Bitcoin miners for the economics to be cheaper now that China isn't in the game. And I've seen headlines with miners moving to North America or Iceland or other places like that. So I don't think it will keep crypto down very long. I think we obviously saw that with the buying pressure we saw as it dipped to 29,000. What are your thoughts, Julie?
I agree with you. I think long term, it actually will be good, especially for others in the game. I think people panicked when they heard, China and crackdown and restrictions. They've had Bitcoin and crypto restrictions since like 2013.
Yeah.
And now it's making the headlines that their national banks aren't allowed to assist or deal in crypto transactions. But I think a lot of people were saying it's like Bitcoin's banned. It's not banned. Like Chinese people can still own Bitcoin. It'd be a little harder to transact on it. It's just the financial institutions and everything. So these aren't really new restrictions, really. Now, the green energy thing, obviously, is a new topic of discussion.
Hmm.
And the biggest reason I think for a lot of that mining getting shut down, but also for the price of Bitcoin, think of supply and demand. If we're cutting 90% of a huge chunk of all crypto production, that supply is going to go down, that demand is going to go up. That's going to be good for the price in the long run. And my video earlier this week, I talked about how for the Bitcoin miners, they will become more lucrative, right? Their market share is going to go up, their abilities there. So, yeah, not a great thing for China, maybe, but I think for crypto as a whole in the big picture, in the long term, yeah, it'll be irrelevant in a couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
What do you shared this article with me about these
Yes.
South African brothers
Yeah, so this was some other
disappearing.
crypto drama. Let me share this here because we're talking a pretty big amount, and that is
Yeah.
two South African brothers disappearing with $3.6 billion in Bitcoin. So these brothers were actually the founders of South Africa's largest cryptocurrency exchange called Africanet. And yeah, they're gone. So they said that their firm had been hacked and that this is where this Bitcoin has gone, but now they're gone along with this money. And one of the kickers, too, part of it being so difficult to try to track this and find it is that the authorities that would normally investigate, say, laundering or this type of crime, they don't recognize crypto as a legalized currency. So they actually can't investigate it as they normally would for other financial crimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
It's a lot of
bizarre.
money.
And if you I in this article, if you look at the statistics here, it will go down as the biggest loss ever.
Wow.
And in fact, the collective losses of this type of thing happening is only about 2.5 billion. So this in this single instance,
3.6.
yeah, three and
Wow.
a half billion dollars. Wow.
Yeah. So scary stuff there, right? And it's like that's a lot of Bitcoin to get away with. And they say that they're warning other big platforms to be aware of trying to see these people like offload some of this Bitcoin, but we'll see what ends up happening there. But
Yeah, because
definitely,
because that's
definitely
the thing with
scary.
Bitcoin and most crypto that has any sort of public ledger, right? Is that you can keep track of all of these transactions, so they can see where the Bitcoin moves, how many of the Bitcoin go
Yeah.
at a time. So it's a strange way to steal money, honestly, because it's like you're just hanging on to it and it's public. I don't know how they're going to get away with it and be able to actually spend the money. I don't know.
Right?
It's
There
a
would be have
bizarre
to be a
situation.
lot of dispersing and layering. Like that is not just walking away with $3.6 billion. Like that
No,
much more intricate than that, I'd imagine.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, oh my goodness. What do I have next for us too? I guess kind of shifting away from Bitcoin and crypto, let's talk about space, specifically the
Yeah.
fact that they're starting to do the passenger flights. We have Virgin Galactic popping up today, right?
Yeah, crazy movement for Virgin Galactic. So
Yeah.
they actually finally, there's so many hoops you have to jump through to get, consumers into space. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's much different than an astronaut or somebody that signs up and knows the risks, right? So the
Hmm.
FAA makes Virgin Galactic jump through like 29, 30 different hoops. And they finally completed all of those things. So they have FAA clearance. So for that reason, they're up what 34, yeah, 34% right now as
Yeah.
we
And I
speak.
grabbed this a bit earlier this morning, so I haven't checked where they're at now, but just a huge jump up for them.
Yeah, yeah. At one point, I think they were up almost 40%. So
Yeah.
crazy movement for Virgin Galactic, but it makes sense. They're going to be bringing in a ton of revenue. One of these tickets costs a
Yeah.
$250,000, right?
Right.
So yeah. So if you had the money, here's the statistic: is the people that are buying these tickets have about $5 million in net worth or
Okay.
more. So if you had $10 million, would you do it?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I would not want to be on the first couple of flights.
Right.
I'll tell you that. I
Make it
would
safe
wait.
first. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I'll give it a good 6 months of other people flying, making sure it's safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can only imagine that is one heck of an opportunity and experience. But what about you?
I would do it. Early on, they had a test flight that didn't go well. They had a pilot that died. But I think those experiences really help drive safety and things
Yeah,
like that. And we know space it's dangerous. But I think it's really a once in a lifetime sort of thing.
absolutely.
I would absolutely do it. I think it would change your perspective on life in general, and
Definitely.
we're all in this thing together. I think it would be amazing.
And like you said, with the FAA, like this is the first of its kind. They haven't had to come
Yeah.
up with regulations for sending just tourists to space. So there's a whole other level of consideration, right? Like you said, the
Yeah.
training, just the understanding that these astronauts have when they're doing it is very different than, we have Jeff Bezos going up in July. So
Yeah.
they had to go through so many hoops, as you said, and it, yeah, hopefully pans out with perfect safety record in the near future here. Unfortunately, I had to save for another year or like 15 until I could, have that extra capital to be like, honey, I'm going to the moon. But
so did you actually see how much these tickets got auctioned for? So Jeff Bezos going up to space with his brother, right?
yeah,
Do you know how much they sold the extra ticket for?
no.
$28 million.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
So,
28 million.
So Jeff Bezos probably paid like the 250, and now this is the
Right.
premium for being on the same spaceship as Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, he gets to hold hands
Wow.
with Jeff and his brother, clenching because they're terrified. Yeah.
Right? Wow. Yeah, that's a hefty premium there.
Yeah. The other headline I saw from that is there was a petition going around to try to stop Jeff Bezos from returning to Earth.
I know. Poor Jeff.
Poor Jeff. Poor Jeff. He's coming back.
I know, right? I'm like, I'm not sure how much power those petitions would actually have as far as banning somebody from the planet Earth, but
yeah, probably zero.
Yeah. No, on the other side, I think it's really exciting for Virgin Galactic because they have had a bit of a rough year. There was a lot of momentum, a lot of excitement, but then there was a couple disappointments when tests didn't go well or they had to postpone them. So we had that latest bump, honestly, about a month ago or so after that successful test flight. And now this is another huge milestone. So I think all of those bulls, like we're finally going to start to see a bit of the momentum continue here now that it's becoming a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you look at the share price, I mean, just the middle of last month, this was $15 a share. So crazy momentum in the last month. It's good to see.
Yeah. Also with good momentum are the indexes. Perfect segue there. We have the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq both hitting new all-time highs.
Yeah, this week. Yeah, it was that was really good to see. I feel like there's this general pessimism right now in the market that, growth stocks are just getting hit so hard. And but if you look at the broader indexes, it looks really good right now for the economy. Both, like you said, the S&P and the Nasdaq at all-time highs. And you have, still companies IPOing like Doximity yesterday. Trying to IPO at $26 a share and ended up getting well over $50 per share just yesterday. So there's still a lot of retail investors that are really rabid for these opportunities. But then on the other side of things, you have people like Michael Burry and these other people really causing a lot of fear in the market. So what are your thoughts on some of these quotes we're seeing from Michael Burry with the disparity between the Nasdaq and the S&P hitting all-time highs?
Yeah, and I pulled up a couple here. One of my favorite ones is this top one that says, people are asking what's going on in the market, and it's simple. Greatest speculative bubble of all time in all things. That's a big statement, right? And what I think is even bigger too, he had to really reactivate his Twitter account and come back just for these 8 days to share these messages. So I feel like he feels very strongly about this, but I don't think anyone else is necessarily on board. He's very speculative of crypto, just a lot of the unknowns there, where obviously crypto is a big interest in the market lately. So I don't want to say that anyone should ignore him. I think it's always good to look at both sides. I don't know. I think things are recovering. We're coming out of a really interesting market for these last couple of years. And I think things are going to continue going well, personally.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, unfortunately, that's how most people feel when there is a bubble, right? But if you don't know who Michael Burry is, he sort of predicted the housing crash, back in 2008 when all of that went down and made billions off of that. So there's a chance that he's positioned really well right now to take advantage of any sort of downturn in the market. So as a retail investor or, any sort of investor at all, you kind of have to keep that in mind with these public figures, when they do make these statements, they may not have altruistic, motivations, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. I don't know where the market's going to go. And I think that's the best sort of mentality to have for me personally, is just kind of looking at it over the long period of time as opposed to these short momentum changes.
Exactly. And that's not to say that there's never going to be another bubble. Of course, there's going to be. Of course, we're going to have downturn.
Yeah.
But there's always the recovery following that. And it just depends how long that recovery takes, really. But especially for long-term investors, that never worries me because I don't plan on panic selling in one of those downturns, right? Like I'm very comfortable with looking out multiple years and just riding out those waves. In the short term, I think we're coming up probably to strong summer. Like we've had really quiet couple weeks for earnings report. Mid-July, we start seeing a lot of big companies coming out with their reports. The ones we've seen recently have been pretty strong. We had Nike coming out today. I think they're up like 13 or 14% today because was it their revenues or their income? Their revenues jumped 96% this quarter from the year ago period. So we're seeing a lot of these big companies with stellar strong reports, obviously recovering from the pandemic last year. I think that's going to help drive a lot of growth over the summer too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yep.
Fingers crossed. Best case scenario, yep. Right? Just
that's what I'm hoping for. And I think things like seeing how Bitcoin recovered this week, right? I think people are excited to take advantage of opportunities when they happen. Yep. So I don't think we'll see these crazy prolonged downturns like we saw recently, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't think that will happen anytime soon, but yeah, I'm hoping we have a
can always surprise us, right? But
absolutely.
Try to stay positive, look long term, all those good fundamentals.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that is most of what we had on the calendar for this week. Anything else you wanted to add?
That's it, guys. It was a pretty, like we said, a pretty quiet week for news this week, pretty quiet week for earnings. But the earnings that did come out looked pretty strong. So I think it's going to be a good week next week. But keep in mind, we'll probably have a couple more quiet weeks before it starts ramping up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to kind of just have a chill weekend, and that's it. What about you,
Absolutely.
Julie?
Yeah, I'd say the same. I do want to let everyone know that next week we should hopefully be doing this as a live stream. So we'll have that scheduled out earlier in the week. You can add it to your calendar, bookmark it, have it set up there, ready to go. That way, Richard and I can even interact with some of your questions and your opinions on some of these big things happening throughout the week. So we're getting our tech organized on our end, and hopefully we'll be up and rolling with that next Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. So get your questions ready. It'll be fun to answer some of your questions.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys all for watching. Hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and have a fantastic weekend.